This week we're using ChatGPT and DALL-E in order to create a story and illustrate it. All right, so in the first step of the assignment, we try to brainstorm a narrative, and we do that through some sort of theme, emotion, or message. I went with a message which I took from this random Salesforce commercial. It's if AI is the Wild West, then data must be the new gold. Let's see if we could come up with a story with that, right? So the prompt I used was write a short story about an everyman coming to terms with AI being the Wild West, where data is the new gold. And ChatGPT came up with this pretty good story for me. So let's get into that now. The next step of the assignment was to break down the story into parts so that we could easily illustrate. The first part here was the beginning, and the story begins with Jake Coleman, a small town car mechanic, doing what he does best, which is fixing cars. While AI is becoming more prevalent because it hasn't changed his day to day, he's not concerned by it. Right. And the next part is the middle. And in the middle, one day Jake loses his job to an AI diagnostic tool. But instead of giving up, Jake doubles down on what he does best, which is fixing cars. And he uses his days to start a car repair shop built on AI tools. The last part, of course, where AI can't solve problems, Jake can. So Jake's repair shop turns out to be the best of both worlds. It's got the AI aspect, it's got the human aspect. So he can solve all the problems. And so the car repair shop succeeds and his life gets better. Right, Jake returns to his day to day of fixing cars, but not as a mechanic, but as an owner and AI expert. So let's get into the next step, which is generating visuals with DALL-E. Right, I just wanted to start the story with a picture of a man who's just happily like fixing cars, but because you know that the upcoming problem is going to be AI taking away his job, I wanted elements of AI like looming in the background, right? So his daughter is supposed to be like coding in the background, and maybe there's also like a chatbot that's handling some orders. Actually, that's what happens in the detailed ChatGPT story. I would say that DALL-E did a pretty good job doing that, right? I got this wonderful picture of Jake in this small town. He's very happy, and there is a computer. So it, on a high level, does what I asked it to do. Of course, in the middle of the story, we find that Jake runs into these problems of losing his job, and what I really want to communicate there was, get a picture of him working hard late into the night, right? And of course, he has to be like studying AI in order to start his AI shop. And we have a bit of a view of that, right? He is, in fact, working late at night. He is determined, maybe a little sad because it's so dark. We do see him on a computer, but we don't see what's going on the computer. We'll get back to that later. All right. And to illustrate the third part, right? In the third part, Jake is back on his feet again. And so I wanted to get an image of him standing in front of his store, real proud. And of course, we have to have the elements of like AI this time. In the beginning, it was kind of subtly in the background, but now it has to be more in the foreground. It has to be part of the shop because that's what um, is leading him to this success. And I would say, this image that DALL-E presented, pretty good, right? It's got that robot, it's got Jake, and it's it's a nice bright image. Of course, not everything is perfect, so we get into step 4, the refine and iterate phase, and let's look at the beginning image, of course, of the beginning of the beginning, and here is Jake, happy in front of his shop, pre-AI period, and yeah, like what you noticed was like there was that girl in the background, and that robot, like in that computer, it wasn't really supposed to be like that. The girl was supposed to be programming, and there was supposed to be a chatbot, not a robot, and the chatbot was supposed to be taking orders. I don't know. I tried to get DALL-E to replace the image with what I wanted, but I got this random floating computer with a face on it. I said that the girl should be programming on a laptop, and literally they put the girl's image above or on top of this picture of a laptop. Didn't quite work. So what's very interesting was what ended up working was I actually took the prompt again instead of using a follow-up, and I re-input the prompt with some tweaks, and I ended up getting the image that I more or less wanted. One thing I noticed was that maybe ChatGPT couldn't do or DALL-E couldn't represent a chatbot very well, right? So I asked for it, and I still got like a generic computer screen. But yeah, definitely improved it from before. Um, Next up was the middle image, right, of Jake working late into night to start his car repair shop. Uh, what I actually wanted, right, was to get a picture of him, his laptop, like facing us, so that we can see he's in fact working on AI. And I wanted him to be a little bit sadder, maybe a little bit less determined, to go with this like darker theme here. Uh, Dolly returned with pretty much a whole different image that looks like a screenshot from a movie. I don't quite understand that. What ended up working was actually copying and pasting the original image in with instructions, and that pretty much got me where I wanted. As you could see, the computer screen is now facing the viewer, and you could see it involves AI. Not sure if it's sadder, but it's okay. Finally, it's we go back to the ending image, and the ending image, uh, like what I thought could have been improved was to have a more like morning time of day like view instead of these like gray like clouds in the background. I figure it's a dawn of a new era. It's a new Jake. I was able to get that. I was pretty happy with that. But I didn't like these like standing robots. I didn't know what that was about, so I wanted to make them into at least little robots that were bringing around parts. I think Dolly just sort of gave up. They didn't add any new robots. They sort of the the standing robots just got edited out. Similarly, I also wanted to test out text, so I came up with this new like title for Jake's shop. It was supposed to be like Jake's Rep AIR shop, but then Dolly just sort of gave up and just removed the sign altogether, as you can see. Um, but at the very end, I wanted to see what random variations would be like, so I asked for 4 variations. Ended up with 3. Very strange that the Dolly gave me 3, but in the process, it seemed to have incorporated some of the older prompts, right? And I finally got the sign that I wanted. All right, reflections. In terms of reflections, how did my experience with AI for creative generation align or differ from traditional creative processes? I think it aligned very well with some broader exercises like mood boards, where you will be able to get a breadth of like images where you won't necessarily copy, but you might like the content in it, and you might like the look and feel, and you might take elements of that. And I thought also it was very similar to photo editing, because in that case you're able to remove and add very specific elements. But there's this mid-range work that I'll get into, which I thought differed. I'll get into in the following questions. So in the next question, we have, how did AI influence the direction or outcome of your creative work? Were there any unexpected challenges or advantages? I would say that one of the ways it operated was doing those happy accidents, right? I didn't intend for the story to be about to be so AI driven. In fact, it should have been more data driven, right? It's about how data is the new gold. But I came up with this interesting humanistic plot of man versus machine, and I thought that was cool. Went with it. I think the other thing, of course, was I wasn't expecting this futuristic car in that final scene. But then I finally understood why it might have been there. It must have belonged to Jake, and I thought, hey, that futuristic car does a good job of bringing Jake full circle, where he's not just this car mechanic, but he's fully embraced technology. So that I think that was probably per chance, and that turned out to be a happy accident too. And of course, these unexpected challenges was Dolly pretty much not doing what I wanted to do at the right time. It was all right. Thoughts on AI for generating creative work? All right, so going back to that traditional processes question, it was great for ideation overall. I thought it was good for those broader tasks or the very fine tasks of like removing things. I didn't think it was very easy to use for the mid-range tasks. Like if I wanted to like change how Jake looked or something like that, it might be very difficult to make it very precise, right? And there might be like certain biases as well going on there. So I don't know, Dolly might actually give me a whole different like image like it did before, and maybe some things are oddly the same, right? Like, well, how come Jake always looks the way that he does? Um, like he's like this, I guess, lanky guy with, I guess, a sideburn, right? Like I don't know why it wasn't some, like I don't know, a bald guy, right, named Jake. It's very interesting. They have to work with those biases and how hard it might be to change that. All right, those are my thoughts. I really like this lesson. All right, And of course, thank you.